Good morning, everybody. It's Steve Brown from Mirae Asset Securities, Mirae Asset Live. Joining us this morning, we have Mr. Tanveer Gill, who's Head of Institutional Capital and Investor Relations at Masan. Masan, with Tanveer, he's been with Masan since August 2012, so he's one of the most experienced members of Masan's institutional client relations team. Tanveer, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I had the privilege of joining your AGM recently in April,
yes.
And the feedback from all of the attendees that were at my table and the other tables, I'm sure, was it was marking a new growth potential for the company, having brought on in the previous year and slightly preceding there the VinCommerce parts of your business profile now.
Correct.
We'll touch on those, and then we'll also discuss the very interesting and exciting news recently with SK coming in for their increased investment in your company, which was announced in I think the 6th of April, first week of April.
Yeah.
So if we have a chat about the 1Q results first, and then where you see the future strategic profile moving into modern trade, in particular for Masan. So I think we might start off with some Q1 2021 highlights.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for having me here. And I think, as you mentioned, I've been here with Masan for 9 years, and it's been an absolutely amazing journey, if I can say that. So, you rightly mentioned this AGM was to mark the 25th anniversary of Masan Group being set up. I believe that was 1996. So yes, I completely agree. Masan has come a long way from being a pure food and beverages player. Now we basically encompass a lot of different segments which we believe Vietnamese consumers really ask for. If you look at Masan's history of evolution in the last 10 to 15 years, we've always been focused on bringing the best brands, the best quality of products to Vietnamese consumers. But now with this acquisition of VinCommerce, I think the long-term strategy for us is the last 10 years was building brands. The next 10 years will be building experiences. And which is why this whole philosophy of joining one of the largest consumer businesses in Vietnam, Masan Consumer, with the largest modern retail grocery business in Vietnam, VinCommerce. And just to touch upon, I would say, the first quarter numbers. So I would say 2020 was the very first year of us running VinCommerce, consolidating into Masan Group. And our focus was to really turn that business around, make it more profitable. Something I would say that we've been able to do. And I would say, it really goes on to show the strength of the people who are working at the group, at our different subsidiaries, to be able to turn around the largest modern trade business in Vietnam within 4 to 5 quarters. I would say that's a job well done by our team. So just touching on that, first quarter numbers, I would say really mark a turnaround in terms of how our business is going to grow over the next 10 to 15 years. So we're really looking at our retail business expanding not through an offline channel, but going forward an online channel as well. Masan Consumer continuing to build some of the best brands for our Vietnamese consumers. If you look at Masan Meat Life, it's been now 3-4 years journey to build out Meat Delhi, right? Which is like the first healthy, traceable, quality, affordable. I can go on.
Basically from farm to table.
Absolutely,
I've seen the story. It's world class.
And then Tecom Bank continues to be one of the most well-managed, well-run bank. Really focusing on Vietnamese consumers' basic needs. Current accounts, savings account, basic stuff, and really trying to improve the financial inclusion for rural consumers in Vietnam. And last but not the least, of course, Masan High-Tech Materials, one of the largest, I would say, tungsten businesses in the world.
I think it is actually the largest, at the moment, largest tungsten mine in the world, correct? Yes.
Yep, absolutely, yeah. So there what we're trying to do is we're going further downstream and trying to minimize the impact of volatility in commodity price to affect that business, and really be able to go downstream and service industrial consumers with what I would say are the minerals of the future, right? For example, tungsten.
Sure.
So that's exactly what we're trying to build. But all in all, I would say, first quarter, really a good vindication in terms of the strategy that we built out over the last 3 to 5 years. And from this year onward, and especially in this year, you will see our profitability turning around, and of course the business is continuing to deliver the kind of revenue growth that we've been doing for the last, I would say, 5 to 10 years.
Sure. Okay. Now, if we have a look at people who also want to participate in that journey with you, SK Group of Korea, it's a huge business and a great partner for you to have. They're basically coming in now, looking at the modern trade story. They want to participate in that with you. So where you've been taking over some complementary SKU style of businesses, you have the personal care and cleaning parts of Masan now, where you have a unique advantage where more and more of the SKUs within the Vinmart Plus are your own brands, your own house retail brands. Do you see any possibility of, say, Vineco being able to be supplied to other modern trade retailers, or will they be exclusive brands for your company?
I mean, it's a very good thought to ponder upon. But again, if you look at what Masan has tried to build, or what Vincommerce is trying to build, is really provide value to Vietnamese consumers. So our philosophy is we need to have the best quality products with the best brands at affordable prices, right? So that's what we're trying to do. If you look at, for example, our Vincommerce business itself, I would say maybe 40 to 50% of the sales that they do come from the Vineco fruits and vegetables that we sell. So today, I don't think we have enough capacity in our Vineco business to serve our existing channel itself. So I think we'll continue to focus on that. If you look at, for example, our meat deli business, right, our branded pork and going forward branded chicken business, that is nearly, I would say now, 40 to 50% market share of the meat that we sell through Vincommerce. So we'll continue to expand these kinds of brands and continue to provide consumers with products that they can trust, but at affordable prices. In terms of SK Group, I would say it's been a very fruitful partnership. It's been a very good validation in terms of some of the initiatives that Masan has done and executed on in the last 3 to 4 years. Whether it was SK Group coming into Masan Group level, whether it's about them owning shares of Vincommerce, and we continue to work with them to look at what are some of the best, you can call them innovations, advancements, which we can bring to this country, considering what SK has been able to achieve, not just in Korea, but actually in the entire world.
The modern trade story, correct me if I'm wrong, it's comprising currently less than 10% of the overall market in Vietnam.
Correct.
So your company and SK share a bit of a view that the modern trade market is expected to increase up to around about 50% of the retail landscape over the next decade.
Correct.
So you're really just kind of at the start of this modern trade journey, and you've been able to, like you said, get Vinmart Plus on board the company now. So with the next question is, at the AGM you noted Crown X as part of that strategy. Some of it will be store-owned rollouts that are part of the Masan Group in its entirety, and then there'll be a large component which will be like a franchise model.
Correct.
Would you like to just touch on that franchise model?
Sure. I mean, if you look at let's just look at the entire, let's say, a modern trade ecosystem in Vietnam. So today, as you correctly mentioned, barely 8% of grocery sales goes through the modern trade channel. The rest 92% still goes through your mom and pop stores, wet market stores, if you want to call them. Modern trade definitely is growing way faster than your traditional general trade channel. As consumers expect better products, more convenience, a seamless experience in terms of consumption. This is where we feel CrownX is is absolutely perfectly suited to build those kinds of experience and products for Vietnamese consumers. So you think about WinCommerce, which today has close to 2,500 odd modern trade points of sales across the country. Those are the kinds of system that we will continue to expand, build our own stores, potentially get to, I would say, close to 10,000 self-operated stores in the next 5 to 6 years. Then you add to that a franchisee model, which basically looks at the general trade. So today Masan consumer goes to nearly 300,000 points of sales, which are predominantly general trade. So if we could transform even 5 to 10% of that number and make them WinCommerce franchisees, then in like 3 to 5 years we can go to potentially 25-30,000 stores across this country, out of which 1/3 would be run by us and the rest 2/3 could be franchisee model. Now with that kind of physical distribution reach within the country, we would also then look to build an online layer on top, right? Work with some existing partners, bring in a strategic partner, for example, and really see how we can build a complete online to offline seamless channel for consumers over the next 5 to 10 years.
You made a very interesting point where your existing penetration into general trade is well over 250,000 mum and pop style of operations. So the client feedback we've had has been somewhat, questioning, but I've reiterated to clients your comment about how you've got a huge existing general trade footprint.
Correct.
And it's just a matter of transferring even a small percentage of those into this new model of a franchisee system where they'll become far more sophisticated in their service delivery models. Everything will go from being barcoded to having, the app-based platform, banking platform sophistication for consumers. Me personally, I think it's workable and doable, and you've got Danny Lay and Michael Wynn, two very good proven executives on board the company, been with the company for many years, who are very integral in driving this part of the vision for the business. So I've got every confidence you can get to that 20,000 plus franchisees by the end of 2025. Therefore, I think it's quite different and distinct from, say, the GS25s of this world, the 7-Elevens of this world in Vietnam that have had a slightly slower growth profile because they don't have the existing 250 to 300,000 general trade partnerships that you've already got. So they've had to do it pretty well from a standing start. So client feedback when they've been saying, how can they possibly hope to do this? You're already doing it, in fact, by 10x, but you just want to scale it back and professionalize it, I think is the way to enunciate it, So now if we talk about some of the other interesting parts of the business, the high-tech, Masan high-tech materials, that company has also had a couple of globally recognized investors come on board from Japan, and then also you've got alliance with Stark now as well in Europe. You've also got there, similar to yourself and Danny and Michael at the group level, in the resource level part of the business, some very good seasoned international operators. You've got Craig Bradshaw, who's running the business as CEO. You've got Stuart Wells, as CFO. You've got a kind of like a mini Australian mining expat strike SWAT team there helping drive that business, plus an experienced fellow from the UK for the sales side. Putting that team together, I think, would be quite hard to replicate. So plus now with the Japanese investor there, some people have asked, any potential for an IPO of that business? You don't, obviously it's corporate sensitive, but if you've got any kind of outline of where you see that part of the business going, we'd appreciate that.
Yeah, no, so just touching upon some of the things you mentioned, I mean, I would say one of the big reason why Masan Group has delivered what it has over the last 9 to 10 years, or even I would say 25 years, is the ability to bring in the best talent from across the world, and of course finding the best talent within the country. So it's always a mixture of people who have proven abilities, and then of course our own Vietnamese nationals who we believe have the potential to go on and become the business leaders of the future. So it's always been a very good mix between foreign internationals and local talent. So that's been one big reason why I think we've been able to scale up the way we have. Today I think Masan employs close to about 40,000 people. Moving on to your second question, so we recently, after Masan High-Tech acquired HC Stark, which is the second biggest processor of tungsten specialty chemicals in the world, we had Mitsubishi Materials from Japan who came in and took a 10% stake in that business. So it's definitely a very good validation in terms of what MHT has been able to build and execute. At the same time, with that partnership, we will definitely look to go one step further down and get closer to our industrial consumers. And as I said earlier, I mentioned earlier something like minerals, the metals of the future, the industries of the future. Those are the kind of areas that we would want MHT to focus on going forward. In terms of talking about an IPO or a listing, so it is listed on one of the junior exchange here in Vietnam, and we'll continue to look at if it makes more sense for us to move it to a senior exchange probably in the future.
Okay. And Masan Consumer, MCH, is often asked of the same from the same investors, in client types. They're all very interested in both parts of the business. Right. I think they're all highly interested, particularly in the Masan Consumer story as well. When you look at going through to 2025, there's just a couple of areas that I think could be future growth drivers. Right. Basically, a yes or no. You don't have to go into anything too deep because of corporate sensitivity. Okay. I respect that. But some people have said to me, what about eggs? What about dairy? What about pharmacy? Between now and 2025, if I say eggs, would you say yes or no? Maybe.
I would say, and I guess that's what An Quang, the chairman of our company and the founder of our company, says, is that whatever sectors are areas where Vietnamese consumers spend a lot of money or will spend a lot of money in the future, and if we can go and build a business model in those areas which serves Vietnamese consumers, then we will always be interested.
Sure.
It's tough for me to say yes or no right now.
I appreciate that.
As I said, right, I mean, we believe we just want to capture a higher percentage of Vietnamese consumers' wallet.
Sure.
And if there are certain things which fit into that spectrum, we'll always be interested.
And give them a higher and higher level of food quality as well.
Absolutely.
Which is where Meat Deli comes in.
Absolutely. Yes.
So next question is Meat Deli. You're again doing good things with that, from farm to table. The whole food protein chain there, correct, barcoded, quality controlled, correct, temperature controlled, and then when it's on display in the shelves, it's all temperature chilled as well, which is basically on a par with any Western developed economy. Now, with that style of service, again, do you see any potential inclusion now with recent talk from, say, Vinamilk we had in a few months ago? They were talking about the Villico giving them a beef range in the future. Yeah. Meat Deli is primarily pork at the moment. Yes. Would you look at including a beef range in the future?
Again, if I take a step back, right? I mean, we want to provide consumers with healthy, traceable products. Meat is definitely a big part of that puzzle. We started with pork because pork is by far the largest constituent of the animal protein consumption in Vietnam. With MML's recent acquisition of 3F Viet, now we've also started selling Meat Deli chicken branded products in northern Vietnam, and we're also looking to expand that range of chicken products across the country. So will beef be a possibility in the future? Of course, yes. But the bigger question is, how do we build a model which we can sustainably continue to scale up, and at the same time provide consumers with things which are healthy, delicious, nutritious, but affordable. So if we can solve for that, definitely it'll be a part of the equation.
Okay, and then moving on to something which some might argue is slightly less healthy, but still much more enjoyable, beer.
Yes.
The Ruby range.
Yes.
When I first started engaging at corporate access level, invites with clients coming from abroad to see you, it was still quite in its nascent introductory phase. But one thing I've noticed in the last 12 months since you've taken over and revamped and started to sophisticate the Vinmart and Vinmart Plus, your in-store displays for the Ruby beer range is on a par with what I see set up for Heineken or Budweiser now. That part of the business to me looks like it's got huge untapped potential now. In the past, it used to be a little bit kind of more of a future story.
Correct.
But I think from what I can see and the client feedback is when they've seen it on display, it's starting to look on par to a proper beer competitor.
Correct.
Your comments on Ruby?
I would say it's been a very good launch for that brand. I would say we've learned some things as we went along, and we've been able to fine-tune our marketing campaigns and really be able to put money behind initiatives which have worked. Of course, now being the operator of the largest modern trade retail business in Vietnam definitely helps. But at the end of the day, I would say the beer business is something which maybe the first 1 or 2 years did have some hiccups, but now in the last 6 quarters nearly, it's been consistently growing. And I think like in the first quarter itself, I think revenues were up like more than 100% odd. So yeah, I mean, a lot of untapped potential for us as far as beer is concerned.
And your board of directors, they're very focused on securing and professionalizing delivery of all of their SKUs throughout your internal stores, and then also focusing on Vietnam internally. So they're not wanting to get too distracted by going into Cambodia, going into Laos, or trying the rest of ASEAN. So you've got nearly 100 million people to focus on. Modern trade, only 8%, forecast to go to 50 over the next decade. Where do you see now, with the free trade agreements that we've signed off with in EU, VNFTA is now ratified, the UK's one on a similar kind of template ratified. When we had another consumer interviewee on recently, they were saying that they're not really too interested in exporting to some of the EU regions because it's kind of a saturated market, and they too, like your BOD, would rather focus on Vietnam and the huge potential internally within Vietnam.
Correct.
Would that parallel with Masan?
I would say consumer potential. We don't believe in exporting or selling products in other countries unless and until we really have how should I say, feet on the ground. Unless and until we go and set up our own unit, we manage it, run it ourselves. We believe that's the best way for us to, grow in the future. If you look at, as you rightly mentioned, like the modern trade is what, 8%. Financial inclusion, for example, in banking sector is barely 30-40%. So these are industries which have vast untapped potential. And we also believe that, the DNA of Masan has been building brands for Vietnamese consumers. We believe we understand Vietnamese consumers' taste and preferences a lot better than what we would be able to do if we were to go to Cambodia, Laos, or anywhere else. Though not saying that that's something which will never happen, but I would say at least for the next decade, our focus is very clearly on Vietnam, consumers living in Vietnam.
I think that's a really good way to go about the business over the next few years personally, because like you mentioned, unless you've got your own feet on the ground and can control it, you can't control it. So with what's going on in each market within Europe, there's a lot of vested interest internally, and it's hard to know what's really going on as an exporter to those markets. last question to wrap things up with, another part of your business that people are highly interested in. It's the most successful listed bank in Vietnam, Tecom Bank. They've been really on a bit of a tear over the last 12 months. Our research desk came out this week with a buy recommendation again on it, 52,100 a share target price.
Right.
With TCB, long-term relationships within Masan, with that, you'll probably help cross-sell opportunities through the Crown X division moving forward.
Right.
Can you touch on anything that's not too sensitive in that area?
Sure, of course. As I mentioned earlier, right, I mean, the physical infrastructure that we have through WinCommerce, or what we're building over the next 5 years, and the online layer that we want to add to it, all of this is ultimately leading to what we called a point of life. A point of life, imagine a place, a typical WinCommerce store where you can go, you can buy, fresh produce from meats and vegetables, you can buy FMCG products, you can buy home and personal care products. Going forward, you could potentially get financial services. So all of these things are within the existing universe of Masan's product itself. So we're looking at how we can transform these typical points of sales into point of life where consumers can access a lot more services. The next step, compared to what we're doing today, which is of course, FMCG, F&B, meat and so on, the very next step is going to be servicing consumers' financial needs, where of course Tecom Bank, is our preferred choice strategic partner, if I would say. Going after that, I think the next step over the next 2 to 3 years will be to look at other kinds of needs that consumers have, whether it's their digital life, whether they need to, for example, book train tickets or travel tickets and so on. So continue to look at how can you service more and more demands of Vietnamese consumers by using or by building what we call this as a point of life ecosystem.
Okay, well, it all sounds like you're on the right track, which is no doubt why SK Group has jumped on board that train again. And Tanveer, we'd love to have you back in after the first half results are published to have an update and see how all the other business lines are going.
Sure.
Thank you very much for being on Mirae Asset Live. Steve Brown from Mirae Asset Securities, and have a good day.